Morning to you. I was reading a press release from our next guest, Niall, indeed, in relation to parks bylaws in the city. To be honest, if a leading author brought this out, you'd kind of have a giggle at it. But Niall, who is a recent general election candidate for the Social Democrats, sits opposite me. Niall, good morning to you.
Good morning, Keith.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, the deadline of 4 p.m. this Thursday is looming for members of the public to have their say on bylaws recently proposed by Galway City Council. And this is about the governance of open space and parks, isn't it?
That's right. So all of the parks, all of the open spaces like the prom and all of the beaches, and there's quite a few. The council are proposing to bring quite a few bylaws around how they're governed and fines in place if those rules are broken.
But if they can't govern what they have already, why are we bringing in new rules?
It's a good question. I mean, I think I can understand from a council perspective that they want to cover themselves for insurance or for any kind of accidents, or they want to have just those powers in case they want to use them.
So you don't think they'll implement them then, do you?
Well, I think it's very hard to enforce when they only have seven wardens covering the entire town from Renmore to Knocknacarra on a 6-day-a-week basis and doing rolling shifts. I mean, already they're struggling to keep up with traffic and parking and other things. And I think it's going to be very hard for them to enforce. But at the same time, and this is the really important thing, is that parks are very important. Parks and open spaces, the prom, our beaches, are very important for the mental and physical health of the city. And we need to be encouraging people to use them and not putting up any barriers to them being used.
Like if you take the rest of Europe and the way parks are used, I mean, we don't use them the same way here. We don't have an adequate amount of parks, I think, in Galway.
Yeah.
I really don't. Certainly in the city centre, we don't have an adequate amount of parks. But I mean, some of the, you were looking there, I mean, if you have your dog, once these are passed, or once they're adopted, if you have your dog off a lead, it costs you how much?
€75.
Okay. How do you determine if the dog is yours or not?
It's a good question. And actually, I was talking to one of the wardens, and what that person said was that if someone is refusing to give a name or their address, there's very little the warden can do apart from calling
the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll have one of these scanners because the dog should be microchipped. Maybe the dog is the one that should get the fine.
Really, I'm
being cynical because they can't implement what they have.
Yeah, and I think we need to have a bit of common sense and trust in people to sort out problems themselves and to respect each other. And I mean, there's plenty. There are. I mean, it is worth having some bylaws, but really they have to be common sense and positive rather than trying to stop people from using.
Take me through some of the other bylaws you're concerned about.
So you're right that dogs can't be on a lead. So if you wanted to have your dog chasing a ball, you need to be running very fast after it.
So you mean that the dog can't? It must be on a lead.
It must be on a lead. Be on a lead.
All of the time.
All of the time.
Yeah.
Another one on dogs is if you have one of the dogs that are on the restricted breed list, and there's a lot of scientific evidence now to show that this restricted breeds don't make any difference to bites. It's the owner behaviour. They're not allowed in the park full stop. So if you have a Rottweiler or a Pit Bull, you have to have them on a lead and a leash anyway. Under the current restrictions, but now they're not allowed.
Discrimination against those breeds.
Completely, yeah. And there's a lot of evidence. Actually, there's a very good academic researcher in the college who has shown that actually owner behaviour is much more important to bites than the breed. So you have lots of Labradors who bite not because Labradors are bad dogs, but because they have bad owners. Another few. So you can't. The days of the jumpers for goalposts will be over. You won't be able to play a game of soccer on the grass without unless you're part of a club and using it on one of the pitches. So that'll be gone. And kids aren't allowed to climb trees anymore. So we're another one that's been included there.
This is bizarre, you know.
I mean, I think so.
You didn't make this up, like.
You couldn't make it up.
Well, if you could, but you'd sell books with it, so you could. So so the kids now have to be reprimanded if they climb a tree.
Yeah.
Can they get a fine for climbing a tree?
Technically, yes.
Technically?
Yeah.
So ad hoc soccer games in Salt Hill Park or South Park or in any other park, they're banned now.
Yeah.
The ball will be confiscated.
I don't know how they're proposing to do it, but technically they could be. And I think it's terrible to be putting up barriers to people using the parks. And so what I'd really like, I mean, it's very sometimes whenever a draft of the bylaws gets done and it gets put out for public consultation, it's hard to change things once they're in train. And so what I'd really want to encourage people is tomorrow 4 p.m. that's the deadline for public submissions. And I think it's really important that if you disagree with these bylaws, to let people know. So it's parks at galwaycity.ie is the email address that you can write submissions to. The other thing is we're trying not to just give out about this and we're trying to come up with an alternative solution. So what a group of us have done is we've put together an open redraft of the bylaws, where we've gone through it line by line and come up with an alternative draft that we think would be, if the council really feel that we have to have bylaws, that we're giving them an alternative draft that we think is a bit more common sense and positive.
But I don't know why fining somebody €75 if your dog is off a lead, or fining a kid for climbing a tree, or fining somebody for playing football, and all the other bylaws that they're changing. I don't know why you need to do that to cover yourself in glory or insurance.
I don't know either, but it's strange. And even if you did think that this was a priority, it's strange that even if you did think that you needed that, how is it a priority for the council when there are so many other bigger problems going on?
All right, let's see. Niall, thank you for joining us, and thank you again for giving me a giggle last evening when I saw this, because to be honest, it's unworkable in my opinion. But thank you for joining us. Niall Tuathail joining us in studio today from the Social Democrats. The comment lines are open, and if you fancy getting your voice heard, parks, PRKS at galwaycity.ie is the email address.